let's do this. I hope I'm able to do screen sharing. We will find out soon. Because we're doing timekeeping, billing, and bookkeeping, and trust accounting. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. In order to answer the related quizzes, set up any questions about what I'm telling you on these things? Don't change the formulas, where the formulas go and cross and down. There's a reason why I didn't do everything on a separate page. It's for grading, and of course, with only two, if I only taught this course with only 2 people every time, we do it in a little different way. But typically, you have dozens of people, and so trying to do it all on one worksheet made sense. The trust account, even people that are good at, sometimes people that are good at using Excel screw it up because they don't understand the trust account, or they want to put detail in that I didn't require, or they want to do it a different way. They don't want to do it across the page like I did. And I guess you guys know this stuff here. How familiar are the 2 of you with what trust accounts are? Okay. Brittany? Because I don't want to over-explain stuff that you already know. But if you don't have a very good idea on it, we do need to explain it in some depth. Brittany, how about you? Have you done a trust account, or have you looked at this yet? Okay, that answered my question. Basically, client brings in funds, and usually in the form of a check. It should be a cashier's check from a bank, or it should be the bank wiring funds. It should not be just a personal check, because if a personal check is not cleared, it's not in the trust. So a trust account is put into a pooled checking account, but it can't be the one that the lawyer pays their business bills with. It has to be a totally separate checking account called a trust account. And all except for possibly if there's fees, or if there's fees that have to be paid, and typically most banks are doing it so that there aren't fees. So basically all the money in the trust account should belong to clients, not to the lawyer. Now does it start to make sense? So the basic thing is, it's not your money, it's not the lawyer's money, it's the client's money. And you have to keep track of the full balance, but you also have to keep track of each client's separate balance. And people say, well, but if we only had 2 or 3 clients, why don't we just set up a separate checking account for each one? Well, because there typically aren't just 2 or 3 clients, that's why. If we had to set up a separate, go to the bank and set up a separate account, or do an electronic bank account for each client, it would go nuts. So basically you are almost behaving like a super strict bank. Banks are not as strict with their customers' money as we have to be with client money. And I think you see why. I mean, a bank may only have so much cash. Most of the cash a bank gets is loaned out. But the lawyer actually has to be able to write checks on every penny that's been turned over to the lawyer. So if somebody deposits $10,000 in a lawyer's trust account, the entire $10,000 has to be available at a moment's notice. Is it starting to clear up? And my admonition to both lawyers and paralegals is, if that out of that $10,000, $100 needs to be spent for the client for a legitimate client expense. After the $100 is spent, the client should be able to come in unexpectedly and know that exactly $9,900 is left. And if the client decides they don't want any more work, you should be able to write a check for the $9,900 because the books are up to date, not at the end of a month. That's my opinion. Not every lawyer would agree, but if you get in that habit, or if you have the electronic means of doing that, clients love that. They don't understand it at first, but when they know that, when they know how it works, the more sophisticated clients will really appreciate the fact that you don't lose track. So it does pay to have some outfit like Clio helping you, or some other outfit, to keep it down to the penny. A check is written, a new deposit, another check, a new deposit. That's why in Excel, I'm forcing my students to do subtotals, which I realize don't always happen. And subtotals look silly when we're only doing a few transactions, but the option of me having to make you do 20 transactions, why should I make you do that much busy work? You have the imagination to know that next time it could be 20 or 30 little transactions, right? There could be a bunch of $20 checks and a $100 check and a $40 check and $39.95. You see where I'm coming from? So why should I have to make you do all that busy work, but in order to teach you to do subtotals? So I want you to do the subtotals, and I realize you're doing it more manually. If you had a fancy product, you wouldn't have to do subtotals. I actually still want you to be able to do the subtotals because, frankly, if you have a fancy product, but somebody else, the lawyer or another employee, goofed it up and put a wrong number in there, you should be able to catch it using Excel. Let's say that somebody else put $20 that was supposed to go in the trust account into the business account, or vice versa. They put too much into the trust account, and it's unusually, the trust account has too much money in it or too little. I want you to be able to catch that and see what's wrong. So you have to not only understand how to input the data, but I also want you to understand what's going on. If it was not a legitimate trust expense, it should not have been written out of trust. Let's fix it. If it was a legitimate trust expense, we should know what the balance is immediately, in my opinion, like I say. But in this case, my opinion is important for the course, because if you don't do subtotals, you won't earn as many points as you would if you do the subtotals. This is not what we're doing this week. This is just a comprehension thing. I do have some comprehension ideas to help you comprehend the trust. Paul calls from a camping trip. He's 600 miles away. He deposits $29,900 for a prospective real estate deal. Says he will reimburse the final $100 when he pays the legal fees. How can this be done? A, This one's kind of questionable. The client said he was going to pay $30,000. How can we pay less than that, even though it's to the client's benefit? The client didn't authorize us to negotiate $100 off the price. So I don't think A really is perfect, although it's kind of questionable. This is kind of on the line, but deposit $100 of law firm money and then write the $30,000 check. I don't agree with this just because law firm money should not go into the trust. So I don't agree with B either. And then it leaves C and D. Stop the transaction until the client pays in the extra 100. It's probably technically not bad, but it's not the best answer because the client is possibly losing a deal. So here's what I would do. I would write a check to the seller and advance the $100 from the business account and then bill the client on $100. That would be, I would do an advancement. The client gets the deal done, buys the lot or whatever. The client doesn't lose. The lawyer is risking $100, but not risking it that much since this fellow promised to pay $100 when he gets back. So I would say this is the best answer. This would be a really hard multiple choice quiz. That's why I'm not trying to get you to take this as part of a test. Here's a checkbook fiasco. This could happen. This is another reason to have some setup like Clio where you have the client and matters listed and by file number rather than just by name. The trust account should not just go by first and last name. You see why from this, don't you? Don H. Reynolds Jr. His money should not be going to Don Y. Reynolds, his nephew. The fact that they're both clients of the firm and that they're related doesn't necessarily mean that they get along wonderfully. Now you've got a really awkward situation. So we have to handle it. I almost wonder if we should even talk to Don Y. Reynolds and try to get the money back. I would probably, if Don Y. knew about Don H. that he was also a client, I would probably just short myself the money. I would probably. And of course, anything you do at that point is somewhat wrong because bad bookkeeping is unethical when it comes to, well, either taxes or certainly trust account, even more so. So we're kind of like a bank and insurance company combined. I mean, we can't just say, well, we were dumb, we forgot. So we can't tell Don Y. Reynolds anything about this, or even that there's a case there. So if Don Y. comes in and says, I wasn't supposed to get this money, I suppose, well, I just have to tell him that it was a mistake and not tell him anything else. But my tendency would be to just absorb the loss and pay Don H. Reynolds Jr. the $200. out of the business account. Hate to do that, but we're kind of stuck. We want to complete trust account and follow directions. So you will get points for mostly correct and correct amounts. And then you do have to use consistently formulas. So all subtotals. So every time there's a checker to deposit, enter the subtotal to the right using a formula, not with mental math calculator. And again, that doesn't make sense because I didn't give you enough busy work that you would have to do it this time, but I want you to demonstrate the skills, even though I didn't give you lots and lots of numbers. Okay. I wanted you to just sort of mentally say, I'm going to always have a subtotal. For the written assignment, complete the spreadsheet according to directions, turn it in. Because there's a related quiz to test you for accuracy, you need to use the correct cells. Proofread your own worksheet in detail and let the instructor know if you need help on methods. Turn in an invoice. That would be normally you want to do an invoice, which is just a bill in Microsoft Word. And then do the related quiz. Lots of students in the past have chosen to do one of these and not both. I don't understand that. I think both of you will do both. I should say all three. I think you'll do all three. But if you get really tired or whatever, do the best on all three, okay? Do the best you can. And if you have to do something again, let me know. And you can put in 2 tries on the spreadsheet and the invoice if you have to, okay? So you complete the billing timesheet is worth 5 points, and completing the invoice is worth 3 points. Here's your live lecture quiz phrase. Now I'm going to try to, I'm going to work with you on the problem set with the trust, but with wrong numbers, just to show you how to do it. Okay, questions, problems so far? And then in the discussion, think about different choices. Okay? Personalize in the discussion. Okay, so this on this side is just a list of names. Do not line up using the list. In fact, it helps to just delete it. Heralds cannot be closed. It will have a balance. Can I show you how to do it? Or can you even see this? Can you see what I'm doing? Okay. So on under A, delete. So if there's names, name. Don't line up by this. delete. Okay? That was just for illustration, but people use it to line up. Now, you have a deposit. Notice that I don't have the check in the same row. I have nothing. Only one thing in one row, deposit or check. And then every time I do one of those, I do a balance for every new thing. So there's a trust deposit. I don't write a check here. And then I do a subtotal. The first subtotal, I didn't use a formula, and you don't have to, okay? Questions so far? Then the next one, okay, there's no deposit. There is a check, and I didn't combine them. Not combined. Just one check. Then I do a balance, and I don't do a balance. I don't just type a balance, I do a formula. Can you see a formula up here? Equal sum D2 minus C3. Okay, do so. Then we write one more check. This is not a combined set of checks. This is only one and only one check. This is only one and only one deposit. This is only one and only one check. Then after that, I do a new balance. Harold's will have a positive balance. It cannot be closed because it isn't zero. The other two have to become zero. Okay? Then you go to Johnson, and these are not the correct numbers, okay? I'm just showing you this for methods and lining up. So there's a deposit. Do I put a check here? No, I don't. I leave it blank because every time there's either a check or deposit, I do a balance. I'm just trying to get you to be totally consistent on subtotal after every item that goes in. Then one and only one check. And then here is one and only one, after one and only one check there, then there is a negative balance. What is wrong with a negative balance? How can we have a negative trust balance? Well, we can't allow that. If you even smell a negative balance coming, you need to bring it to the lawyer, but have it in your hand saying, this would create a negative balance, which I understand cannot be allowed for a trust. I think that it can't have been this amount because that would create a negative balance. Somehow we need the extra $50. We cannot do this, okay? Okay. I don't see you guys commenting. Can you turn on microphone or something? Am I getting this working for you? Is this working for you folks? Okay. It's an absolute, it's not a close call. This has to make sense to you. You have to say absolutely not. We cannot ever do a negative balance, even if the lawyer is a multimillionaire or whatever that can just cover anything. They cannot write it out of the trust this way. Even if they cover it out of their personal cash in their pocket 2 minutes later, that check has to be torn up. Because even when the lawyer fixes it, the ethical violation has still happened. Fixing it immediately or within 1 hour or within you know, almost immediately, lessens the violation, but it doesn't really end it. And I realize lots of lawyers have made this ethical violation, but let's say that they were accused of another violation, this one would add on, it would pile on. And the lawyer would say, well, it wasn't really a violation because nobody got hurt, I covered it. Well, hey, it still shows that you're not properly handling a trust account, Mr. Lawyer or Mrs. Lawyer. So this can't be, the lawyer does come in with another $50 and covers it. Okay, then you need a new balance to by formula that zeros it. If it's not zeroed, we still have a problem. Now, do not forget to do Albertsons. The only way to get a trust account to zero is to write him a check. So let's say that we started out with $1,000, and I'm not going to do a formula right now. Well, maybe I will. Okay. Now, we can't leave that. If his case is done with, we have to pay it out to Albertson. So let's write a check in the next row, 3, write a check. And then let's do a formula. So we have a legitimate zero. Now we can put the file away and say his file is closed, but we can't as long as there's money in it. Any questions about that? Problems? Okay. If you have any problems on this at all, just simply getting it done, do not forget to call me, okay? I want you to end this course if one of the most important things about this course is knowing that this bookkeeping, especially trusts, has to be correct. Let's see here. The invoice and calculation helps for timesheet is what you use. Use only the red data. So let's what I'm telling you is that somebody did the spreadsheet wrong, okay? Somebody did the spreadsheet wrong, and consider this your correction sheet for the spreadsheet. It is not exactly the same as the spreadsheet because in the spreadsheet you can't combine these numbers into one cell, okay? Any questions about that? There's very few errors, but there are definite errors. So you find the errors in the spreadsheet and fix them. This data is correct. This Microsoft Word red data is correct. Spreadsheet has errors for you to fix, okay? A very few to find incorrect. Questions about that? And then I did drop-down menus back a while ago. And I want you to use the drop-down menus rather than retype. Okay? So if this bill rate is wrong, instead of retyping it, you would take a choice. Okay? if one of these names is not supposed to be on the list, then go below the list and select nothing. Or if a different name is supposed to be there, use the pull down and select a different name, okay? Do not recalculate these. These are already set up by formulas. Change the bill rates or the time units if there's a mistake. It might not be that easy to find the errors. It's similar to other detail work. It's you're going through step by step, and of course here the bill rates and the time units have to be in separate cells. It's not like the Microsoft Word where they're crammed in. So it's not a precise, exact looking thing. But so again, red data in Word, all correct. This sheet has errors. Okay. Now, to make it easy for instructors, I didn't create lots of errors. If you take a quick glance, you're going to say there's 0 errors. And you'd be wrong. Again, if there's supposed to be a different name, put a different name using the pull downs, little arrow. If there's not supposed to be a name at all, go to the bottom. You see what I'm doing? Can you see that I clicked on the pull down and then I go to the bottom and then I select no name, which is below Ryan. Sometimes I click through things too fast and it doesn't show up on the screen, your screen. Was I able to show you that in a way that worked, that matched up with the voice well enough? Okay. Well, then I'm going to quit and ask you folks to try this stuff while it's fresh in your minds and just quit for the day, okay? Or quit for the session. Yeah. Yeah, try it when it's fresh in your minds and then contact me, send me a course message or call. Don't be embarrassed if you get stuck. Yeah, it's not supposed to be complicated to understand. It's supposed to be detail work, that part of it especially. The trust accounts don't make sense if you don't understand it pretty thoroughly, but the billing, the invoicing, and then getting the errors corrected is supposed to be detail work. It's not supposed to be like terribly complicated concepts.